You're listening to The Secrets of Doctor Who, where we discuss everything about the hit BBC series, Doctor Who. And today we're discussing the fourth Doctor story, The Armageddon Factor. I'm Dom Bettinelli, and joining me today on the panel are Jimmy Aiken. Hey, Jimmy.
Howdy, Dom.
And Father Cory Stichas. Hey, Father Cory.
How's it going?
Folks, remember to like The Secrets of Doctor Who on Facebook. We're at facebook.com/Secrets of Doctor Who. You can retweet us when you find us on Twitter, where we're at, or X, where we're at SQPN, as long as they don't take our account down again. There was a whole weird thing with X taking our account down for unknown reasons. As long as it's there. And be sure to leave us comments when you find us on social media. We love to hear from you and talk to you online. And I want to tell you about another show on the StarQuest Network you're sure to enjoy called The Catholics of Oz, they're also big Doctor Who fans, and you can find them at sqpn.com/Oz. That's OZ. So we are talking about the Armageddon Factor, and Jimmy, can you give us a recap of what happens in this one?
This week, the Fourth Doctor and the First Romana are after the sixth and final segment of the Key to Time. They find themselves on Atrios, a planet that is having a nuclear war with its twin planet, Zeos. Atrios is led by the peace-minded Princess Astra and a war-minded Marshal. The war is going badly for Atrios, and their fleet is eventually reduced to just one ship. However, there is a third force involved, a mysterious figure known as the Shadow, who wants to get the Key to Time for the Black Guardian and unleash a universal war to cause destruction. The Shadow is on a planet of evil hidden between Atrios and Zeos, and it's the Shadow who is the real cause of the nuclear war. The Marshal is initially in league with the Shadow, but when the Doctor is transmatted to the planet of evil, the Shadow tells the Master that there will be no more attacks from Zeos, because the Shadow wanted to get hold of the Doctor, who can give him 5 segments of the Key to Time. Determined to have his victory, the Marshal then takes the last remaining Atrian ship to drop nukes on Zeos. Meanwhile, the Doctor and Romana make their way to Zeos and discover it's run by a computer called Mentalis. The Doctor tries to disconnect Mentalis, but he activates a program that will cause the planet to explode, destroying both Atrios and Zeos if it is attacked. To temporarily stop that from happening, the Doctor adds an improvised 6th segment to the Key to Time and puts the Marshal's attack ship in a time loop. But the time loop is stretching, so this solution won't last forever. He then confronts the Shadow, who gets the existing 5 pieces of the Key to Time and the improvised segment that is allowing it to keep the Marshal in a time loop. The Doctor is helped by an old schoolmate, a Time Lord named Drax, who was coerced into working for the Shadow. It turns out that Princess Astra herself is the 6th segment to the Key to Time. Obsessed with the thought that it's her destiny, she voluntarily allows herself to be transformed back into the segment, but the Doctor and Romana take the Key to Time and the 6th segment. Back on Zeos, Drax helps them disarm Mentalis, and the Doctor uses a force field to deflect the Marshal's nuclear attack, causing it to destroy the planet of evil and killing the Shadow. The Black Guardian then impersonates the White Guardian and asks for the Key to Time, but the Doctor realizes that it's the Black Guardian, and he snaps the tracer wand, causing the segments of the Key to Time to scatter across the universe and return Princess Astra to her human form. Afterwards, he and Romana use the Randonautica app to head off on a random journey that the Black Guardian won't be able to predict. The end.
Whew. That's a lot.
6-parter.
Yes, yeah. Yes. So, Father Cory, your overall impression of this one?
Well, this really is 2 stories, because you've got the first part, which is the war in Atrios and trying to find the 6th piece and realizing who it is, literally who it is. And, and of course, the chasing around between the different planets and evil K9 and all that stuff. And then you've got once the Key to Time is complete. And the first part is a pretty typical, mutually assured destruction, watch out for that type story. The second part is, in my opinion, the more interesting of the two, because you see the results what the Key of Time can do and the Black Guardian exposed. So it's not a bad story. There's a lot going on. It's not a slow story by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, they're bouncing between planets, but it's not slow. They're still running through corridors and stuff like that, but it's a good story. I enjoy it.
Jimmy?
I think it's an okay story. I am more interested in the Key to Time stuff than in the Atrian-Xeon War. I thought that it was particularly in the opening episodes that deal primarily with Atrios and Zeos, that they're quite grim. My first note is grim opening. And that's even reflected on the writing level, because the doctor at one point, Romana early on is really not a fan of this situation that they've stumbled into. And the doctor says, "Oh, where's your joy in life? Where's your optimism?" And she says, "It opted out." and then when they discover that they're finding the sixth segment in a nuclear war, the doctor says himself is not too big on the situation. He says, "Let's locate the sixth segment and get out of here." And Romana says, "I'm with you all the way." Also early on, I noticed like we open on Atrios on a scene of a man and woman talking like passionately to each other, like they're lovers saying goodbye in wartime, like from a propaganda film. And then we back out, and that's exactly what this is. It's a propaganda broadcast being shown in a hospital of much worse off Atrians. And there was just a kind of satirical quality to the Goodbye in Wartime film that I and with this mixture of grimness and comedy and kind of sly comedy, that I thought, oh, I wonder if Robert Holmes wrote this. And so I checked, and no, but Douglas Adams was one of the writers for all this. And there's some really, really nice comedic bits later on. My favorite is when the doctor, let me get it here. It's when the doctor has been working on Mentalis to try to deactivate it, and Mentalis can defend itself. It can laser zap people in its vicinity. And K9 is in communication with Mentalis. They're having some droid talk that, humans can't understand, but K9 is translating. And the doctor's like, "You're sure Mentalis is okay with me doing this?" And he's like, "Yes, master." And so the doctor's trying to disarm it, but then something really bad happens. And Romana says, "What have you done?" And the doctor says, "I don't know. K9, what have I done?" "You have triggered primary alert function." And the doctor says, "Blast." "Affirmative."
That's what's going to happen.
K9 had some good one-liners in this. I mean, there's all over the place. Even had a little bit of sarcasm in his tone.
Yes. So for me, I enjoyed it. It was okay. It wasn't the best Fourth Doctor story. It wasn't by far not the worst even. It was an interesting, and I'm in agreement. The best parts were when we got to talking about the Key to Time, because that's what this whole season's been building to. This is the last episode of a season. It's first season-long story arc in Doctor Who.
Since the War Games.
Right. Was the War Games a whole season?
It was. War Games wasn't season long. No,
it was just a 10-parter. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You could also count one of the seasons of John Pertwee as kind of a season-long thing, because the Master was the villain in every episode of a season.
Yeah,
right.
You could consider that. Yeah. It reminds me a lot of that original series Star Trek episode, A Taste of Armageddon, where you're in a war that's being run by supercomputers. Now, in this case, it's only one side is the supercomputer, but it has a little bit of that sense of a pointless mutual self-destruction war, apocalyptic war, or Armageddon war in that sense. So I kind of had little flashbacks of that. I like Romana I in this, and I like
Romana I is great.
Yeah. I like what I've seen of Lalla Ward as the regeneration of Romana. We saw her in Shada. That's what I've seen so far. But gosh, I really like Mary Tam in this, and she really has this spunk. She really stands up to the Doctor. She's not a tag along. She really has some agency. She knows things that he doesn't at times, and that they really like that.
I know. I really like that too. I mean, I like Lalla Ward as Romana II, but I like Mary Tam as Romana I even better. Romana II does not. I mean, she does stand up to the doctor sometimes, and she's got a little bit of pepper, but she also at times kind of becomes a clone of the doctor. She'll dress like the doctor with even a long scarf of her own and stuff. And that's not Romana I's style. She doesn't roll that way. She's her own person and stands up to the doctor.
Yeah. And an interesting contrast from the last companion, Leela, who I also really liked.
Yep.
But for different reasons. And so I like that they kind of went to something different for this companion, and it was nice to see, to see that.
Yeah,
It's clear during this time of Doctor Who that they're trying to find companions who have their own strengths. You got Liza Sladen, Sarah Jane, who's she's the journalist and she's exploring and she's getting into her own trouble. You've got
Jo Grant was an escapologist.
Grant. Yeah.
Yep.
You got Leela, who's she's got the fighting skills.
Straight
Romana I. Yeah, Romana I is straight. She's equivalent in intelligence, if not maybe even a little bit smarter than the Doctor. So they're trying to find these companions that can bring a strength to it that the Doctor himself might not have,
and that are from elsewhere. Whereas today, all we get are 18-year-old British women.
Yeah.
Yep.
Pretty much. Yeah. It's it's kind of boring, Ruby and just down, you can go backwards.
Rose and Ruby and Amy and Martha and Donna was the only standout, and she was the one that stood out.
Right.
Yeah.
And she's still a British woman from London.
She's modern day. Yeah.
She's
older.
She's just not 20 years old.
Right. I mean, at least with the 13th Doctor, we had a little more variety there. I mean, we had some men, and we had,
Well, we did have Yaz.
Yeah, I mean, she's a little older, but yeah, but still, she fits the mold, and that was the disappointing part. So, this is the end of Romana I. She will regenerate off screen between seasons.
Well, no, this is a really controversial scene, but when we come back for the first episode of next season, Romana tries on several different bodies on camera before settling into Lalla Ward.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah, but it's like she goes in the back room, changes appearance, comes out. It's not like you see the lights and sparkles and all that kind of stuff you see with the regeneration today.
Right. Yeah. Or even just the other regenerations of the Doctor, even between 3 and 4 and 4 and 5.
Yeah.
So
she actually, if memory serves, she actually comes out as Lalla Ward first, and the Doctor says, "Oh, I don't like it at all." So she comes back out, and she's ginormous. Doesn't like that. Goes back, comes back out. She's like short and blue. Comes back out as Lalla Ward. Oh, this one's perfect.
I mean, it's kind of like when he came out the first time after his regeneration.
Yep. Trying on different clothing.
Yeah. So this story is a morality tale about those who think you can wage nuclear war to victory a bit, at least in the first bunch of it.
First 4 parts, basically.
Yeah. The Marshal is, a warmongering, madman who, although how much of that was the influence of the Shadow versus who the Marshal really was, I
get the feeling that was all the Shadow. I get a feeling that was all the Shadow. I mean, obviously he was a military member and everything, but even the most diehard military member is going to say, okay, we've lost this one. There's no way this is going to happen.
And the Shadow does have mind control technology, often through a little thing he sticks on your neck. And we definitely, I don't remember if the Marshal had a neck device, but he did. He also had a magic mirror that he was talking to the Shadow through, that he was clearly under the Shadow's mental domination.
Yeah. I like when the Shadow tried to do it to the Doctor, and he was like, "Oh, there's a little thing here. Let me take that off." Like, it had no effect whatsoever.
Yeah, he's telling him, like, "Doctor, you are under my power now." And the Doctor plucks off the neck thing and says, "What, through this?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it works on K9.
Yeah.
Get evil K9 for a while.
Yeah. One thing that I wanted to talk about, so I thought it was interesting. Now, when this was all set up, we were told, the White Guardian commissioned the Doctor to find the key to time. And he said the universe was coming to this crisis point where it needed to be brought in for its 50,000 year maintenance or whatever, and have everything rebalanced so that it would be okay and keep functioning properly. And he warned that there is like a counter force out there that you need to be wary of. There's a Black Guardian in essence. And when we first meet the Shadow, he is an opera villain. He is he's very much he's got a head that's like a wax skull over over the actor's human head, and he's black, and he's cackles, and he's an opera villain. And to this point, we had not seen the Black Guardian, and so I think there is a bit of a fake out when they first introduce the Shadow, and they don't tell you who he is, and they don't mention the Black Guardian. The Shadow does not mention the Black Guardian as a separate person. And so I think that there's a kind of deliberate fake out here to lead the audience to think maybe the Shadow guy is the Black Guardian. But then it becomes clear, no, he's a servant of the Black Guardian. But then we have the resolution to the story, which occurs in, at the end of episode 6. And there's some really nice things in that scene. It's an extended scene, and it was written by Douglas Adams and the other producers, not by the main writer for the episode. And there's some nice stuff in there, like at one point when the Doctor has the complete key to time, he does this power mad fake out, where he's rolling his eyes back in his head and say, "There is no more free will. It is only my will." And he's freaking Romana out. And Romana's like, "Doctor, are you okay?" "Well, of course I'm okay, but what if I wasn't?"
Yeah.
And so there's nice stuff in there, but it also, it's lacking because so the Black Guardian shows up and he impersonates the White Guardian.
That's what I wanted to ask.
And he's clearly not the same guy. Now, I'll tell you what the original plan was. The original plan was to have the actor who played the White Guardian here. And it was just going to be the White Guardian. And the Doctor was going to decide, I can't trust the White Guardian. This is too much power for any one person to have. And he was going to disperse the key to time. So he was going to defy the White Guardian and abandon his mission at the last minute. But then the actor who played the White Guardian wasn't available. And so they got Valentine Dial, who became the Black Guardian and remained the Black Guardian into the Fifth Doctor's time. And he shows up, he impersonates the White Guardian, but it's clear he's not the same guy. The Doctor realizes who he is. And the way he realizes this is interesting because the Black Guardian, says, "Please give me the key to time." And the Doctor says, "Well, but you said it needed to be assembled so you could rebalance the alignment of the universe in your fancy celestial car garage. And can't you do that now? Because I've got it reassembled right here on my TARDIS. Can't you just do that at a distance?" And the Black Guardian, pretending to be the White Guardian, says, "Oh, of course I can. But then I need to take it into custody because I've concluded it's too dangerous to leave lying around the universe, and so I need to keep it under protective custody." And they've been commenting, and I think the best thing about, I think this is a really great idea, having the last segment of the key to time be a human. That's wow. We've seen it be all kinds of other things, a planet, they really came up with creative ideas for what could be the segment. And it turns out Princess Astra is the segment. And, she's the sixth daughter of the sixth house of the sixth royal dynasty of her planet. And she's the sixth segment of the key to time. It's written into her DNA. And she's willing to, as her destiny, she's willing to become this segment. But the Doctor and Romana have been seriously creeped out by the fact, especially Romana, have been seriously creeped out by the fact that a human being just turned into a hunk of glass plastic. And this is horrible. And so when the Black Guardian, pretending to be the White Guardian, says, yeah, I'm just going to keep the key to time in my custody for protective reasons from now on, it's like, okay, that's immoral. There's a person in there. And as Romana and the doctor are talking about it, they say, yeah, the real White Guardian would have immediately, it would have rebalanced the universe and then immediately undone all the segments so that Princess Astra could resume her human life. And so that's a nice little morality thing. And they eventually they defeat the Black Guardian's plans, and then they go on a random walk in the universe so he can't find them. But wait, what are we leaving out here? Didn't the universe need to get rebalanced immediately? And that hasn't happened. And what about the White Guardian? And how is the Doctor going to explain? There's just all kinds of dangling threads here.
Well, that's what I was wondering about was the White Guardian the Black Guardian all along? Was that first guy, was he really the White Guardian?
Yes. Yeah. There are two Guardians, and they meet face to face in the Fifth Doctor episode Enlightenment.
Right. But I was wondering if the Black Guardian was had started this whole thing in the beginning to get the Doctor to bring it all together for him under false pretenses.
They could retcon it that way, but they never do on screen.
Yeah. Yeah, because otherwise, you're right. It is weird. Thanos gets all the Infinity Stones, and it's like, it's like, well, no, like, why did we do this? Why did we go through this whole exercise in the first place? Right. It's only to have it almost go bad at the end. It seems like the White Guardian was pretty.
He's asleep at the switch.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. And I do like the way it was written, because the Doctor kept going, he's in possession of the key to time, so he has to relinquish possession of it by giving it, Alexa commands. But he's like, key to time, I command. Now, what about the sixth segment? Like, he gets right into the command. He gets the Black Guardian is like, I'm about to get control, and then he's like, well, before I finish, I have another question.
That's definitely the Douglas Adams influence there.
Yeah,
that's where you can definitely see it. Is that things like that? He likes little tricks like that.
The combination of Douglas Adams and Tom Baker is always fun. It's so the best Tom Baker as the Fourth Doctor is, the lines that he gives. It's no wonder he's probably the most popular of the Doctors in the classic era, at least. And part of it is because of that fun, wacky, nature of the dialogue and his quippiness.
Yeah, and Tom Baker brings in a little bit of slapstick too.
Yeah,
exactly. He likes to bring in a little bit of that slapstick, kind of silly falls and things like that. And
right, he's got the physical humor and the acting. That's why all these things are so important, that it's a combination of the actor and the writers. The actor and the people who make the show make these characters who they are. It's not just one person, and that's so true in this case.
And that's why Romana I was such a great foil for him. Is she played the straight man or straight woman to Tom Baker's comedy, and she wouldn't put up with it sometimes. Just like, you're being ridiculous, knock it off. In as many words,
Right. So earlier on, you have the Marshal, when the Doctor and Romana show up, is like, capture them and kill them. Just, they're a nuisance. They're in the way, or they're doing something wrong. Just capture them and kill them. They need to be disposed of.
They think they're Xeon spies.
Right. And then, he gets a command from the Shadow, and the switch flips, and suddenly the Doctor is their deliverance. He is going to be the one who saves them. And the Marshal gives this speech, about the Doctor, and the Doctor inserts, this blessed plot, and oh yes, that's a good line, and it's a reference. The Doctor's making a reference, like, basically the Marshal stole this speech from Shakespeare's Richard II, which is this blessed plot, this earth, this realm, this England, this nurse, this teeming womb of royal kings. It says, I prefer the original to the Marshal. That was really good. I like that. So some of the secondary characters, you have Mirak, who is Astra's love interest, the combat surgeon, I guess. You have Drax, who's the Time Lord, who has to be there.
Yeah, now Drax is a lot of fun. He is. He's got a kind of a Cockney accent, and they explain that by he spent 10 years or something in London on Earth.
In Brixton, to be specific,
in Brixton, and he had to learn the local lingo. But he's kind of like a Cockney counterpoint to the Doctor for part of this. And he also confirms something that had been out there in the secondary literature for a while, which is the Doctor's name is Theta Sigma. Mm-hmm. And he refers to him as Theet when he meets him. And then when the Doctor doesn't respond, he says Theta Sigma, or Theta Sigma. And later they'll establish that was the Doctor's nickname when he was at the Academy. It's not his true name. Mm-hmm. But for a while it was presented as in the secondary literature as his true name. There's also a mathematical equation that was presented as his true name in the secondary literature. But Drax is spunky and helpful as soon as the Doctor flips the switch. I mean, he's really here to kill whoever he's working for. The Shadow has coerced Drax into working for him. Mm-hmm. It's like, I'll kill you if you don't do what I say. And what he wants, what the Shadow wants, is for Drax to kill basically the next person to come along. And Drax doesn't know it's going to be the Doctor. And the Doctor, all it takes to flip him is for the Doctor to say, don't you know he's going to kill you anyway once you've killed me? And we may as well work together. And then they start working together. So it's a little thin in terms of the character motivations here. It's not very densely written. But the thing I love most about Drax, other than what I mentioned, is he also does stuff like he gets the Doctor's plan wrong. He's built a shrinking gun that the Doctor means him to use on a mutant minion of the Shadow, and instead he shrinks first the Doctor and then himself. and they go running around in like 3-inch high form for an episode. But one of the things I really love is at one point fairly early on, Drax is swearing to the Doctor that, okay, I'm on your side now. I'm a good guy. I'm not one of these evil shadow minions. And what he does is he crosses his fingers like they're an X and puts them first over his right breast and then slides them over to his left breast. and so he's crossing his hearts, and which is, of course, a Christian custom. But because Time Lords have two hearts, we get an indication of where they are. And even as a kid in around 1980 or when this aired, I thought, oh, wow, that gives us biological information about the Time Lords.
His character flips pretty quickly, I think, is very much within character. He's a privateer. He's a contractor. He's in it for one thing, himself and making money. Mm-hmm. He's not worried. He does no allegiance to the Shadow. He's only working for the Shadow because the Shadow forced him to. But as soon as he finds something better, something that can get him out of this, which it does, he switches right away, and that's exactly what that character would do.
And I think he's moral, though. He's not amoral.
Yeah, he's not amoral, but he's still got that. No, I'm going to do this for myself, and he sells weapons, but only the good people, that kind of deal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it was he who initially, under coercion from the Shadow, it was he who initially installed the Mentalis computer system on Zeos, which is how he's able to tell the Doctor which wire to cut at the end. Although he's not 100% sure, but it turns out he's right. And then he's got his own exit because he's got a TARDIS of his own on Zeos that he could use to go elsewhere. And the Doctor asks him if he wants him to drop him off or something. And he says, "Oh no, I'm gonna, there's gonna be all this rebuilding on Zeos, now that the war is over, and I've got a new contract for that, and the Marshal's gonna be helping me now that the Marshal's out of his job because the war is over, the Marshal's gonna be helping me do that." And the Doctor says, "When did you arrange this?" And Drax says, "Oh, I expect about 30 minutes from now."
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the fact that in Classic Who, we occasionally ran into people from Gallifrey of various sorts who were not, in the employ.
Supervillains.
Yeah, or in the employ of the Time Lords officially as a, like in the CIA or with the Doctor. They're just regular folk.
Yeah, they weren't government officials. They weren't, the high Time Lord muckety muck or something like that. They were just people like in Drax's case, he just basically washed out of Time Lord society.
He washed out of the Academy, in fact.
Yeah.
Which technically should mean he's not a Time Lord, but they didn't have. It wasn't as firmly part of the lore then that you needed to graduate in order to become a Time Lord.
Right.
It was more of a hereditary title like lordship in England, where you could have a lord wash out of university if the university wanted to play by the rules and not bend them for the royalty.
Yes. Do royals ever wash out of Eton? Probably not. So another side character who I kind of enjoyed was Major Shapp. He was the aide-de-camp to the Marshal, and he was so phlegmatic most of the time. He was just very undisturbed by, the Marshal's like nearly foaming at the mouth at times, like just irrational or just overwrought. And he's just like classic British aide-de-camp, ready and waiting to take care of everything as necessary. Ready the missiles. It's like he's just there.
Your escape, your command ship is ready, sir.
I liked how also once the Marshal has gone off the rails and the aide de camp has himself been to the planet of evil and has learned what's really going on, he continues to just be Mr. Phlegmatic, but working for the Doctor now.
Right. There is a point in one of the later episodes where the Doctor is like sending him back to Atrios to kind of stop the Marshal's final attack, so that we won't have things blow up. And the Doctor has to kind of shoo him away, like, okay, go. Like he's like, oh, right, and then runs out the door. Like not quite as phlegmatic at that point, but it's a very comedic moment. And
then that kind of continues when he's getting ready to get into the transmat, and the bad guys show up, and they have this shootout, and he like stutters back to the transmat and falls over with the gun pointing straight up in the air.
Right. I wasn't sure whether he was dead or just wounded. Stunned.
Just stunned.
And it turns out,
There's also a moment where Merak, the Doctor, who is so in love with Princess Astra, where he gets into the transmat and he forces a mute, which are these kind of servants of the shadow. He forces a mute in with him and apparently kills the mute while they're in the transmat chamber, because when on the other side, when the transmat is complete, out comes Merak with the mute's weapon wearing the mute's clothes.
Yeah. There's a couple, we mentioned that K9 has a lot to do in this one, and there's one point where the Marshal has ordered that since K9 has used his weapon to interrupt his plans, the Marshal orders that K9 be tracked down and destroyed, and has him recycled into a recycling furnace. And we have this extended poor K9 going down the conveyor belt to the furnace and, getting hotter, master. I need to be rescued, master. And then finally the Doctor finds out, and at the last possible second, of course, he rescues him. And one of the funniest, understated, funny lines in the whole thing, the Doctor steps out of this furnace, which is, like they were saying, like it's so hot, like no one could possibly survive. It'll take a week to cool down before we can even get in there. And the Doctor steps out carrying K9 and says, warm for the time of year. It was so understated, it cracked me up.
There's another really great comedic line that Tom Baker has at about that point in the plot, where just actually shortly before that point in the plot, where the Marshal has got his new brainwave from the shadow that the Doctor is going to lead us to victory. And so the Marshal is telling the Doctor that, he's just breaking the news to the Doctor. And it's like, you're going to lead Atrios to victory. And the Doctor is, oh, good-o, as long as there's no personal risk involved, of course. Yeah. You could see,
it's not that Douglas Adams is the only funny writer on staff, but he just had this knack for the quip for the Doctor.
I remember, like, in the first volume of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, there's a line about Vogon ships, Vogon constructor fleet ships hanging in the sky in exactly the way that bricks don't. And he just really has a nice paradoxical writing style.
Yes.
You know, well, there's continuing on with the coming out of the furnace there. K9 gets a real great sarcastic line about, oh, he's not even the marshals. He's not even Singe. My apologies. Oh, that's all right. We all make mistakes sometime, don't we, K9? And K9, with smoke coming out of his muzzle, negative.
Yeah.
K9's not so happy about this.
Yeah. But he does get turned for a while, and the way that the Doctor can tell that K9 has been turned is that he calls him Doctor and not Master, which is the only way.
He started called the Shadow Master.
Yeah, exactly. So it's that's clearly not K9 in charge there. So that was interesting.
Although K9 doesn't, I mean, he outs himself pretty quickly. He starts talking to the Doctor about my new master, the Shadow.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
One thing that I thought was another kind of lacuna in the scripting for this is when we get to Zeos and we learn about Mentalis, we never see any Zeons. And they even comment on it, that's like, where are all the Zeons? We don't see any Zeons. And I thought that, okay, maybe the Zeons were all killed or evacuated at some point, and then the Shadow put in Mentalis to do this nuclear war thing. But they don't tell us that at any point. And then there's further doubt cast on that with Drax's plan to get hired to do rebuilding on Zeos now that the war has ended. That would imply there are Zeons who employ him.
Did he say Zeos or Etrios? I thought he said he was going to be building
Etrios. Oh, well, okay, then I misheard that.
Okay.
But nevertheless, are there any Zeons? And if so, why don't we see them? That we need explanation for that.
The only thing we know for sure is that they did see them when before the war.
Before the war 5 years ago.
Yeah, 5 years ago. But that's the only thing we know. So, I mean, for all we know, that all this on Zeos is underground there, and the people of Zeos don't even know what's going on. But again, there's
a nuclear
no
war.
line. Yeah, there's no line, because I think the way they made it sound that Atrios took all the damage. Like, Atrios never got any actual attacks on Zeos.
Right. Nothing
and
ever
that's why
made
they're
it there.
losing so bad. Losing so bad.
Yeah. Well, another bit of a hole in the writing was this idea that when Zeos explodes, the explosion is going to be so big that it takes out Atrios as well, which the whole point that they can't see Zeos from Atrios is this shadow planet's in between, which means that if the explosion is big enough to take out Atrios, it's going to take out the shadow planet too, And so there was kind of a, I don't know, it just
perhaps the Shadow didn't care at that point because he thought, well, I'll have the key to time and I can protect myself with that and go launch my devastating war between the two halves of the universe.
Yeah, yeah.
Or the Black Guardian will pull him out at the last second once he has the key or whatever.
Yeah.
There was also a bit of a weird moment after Astra had transformed into the sixth segment, and they've defeated the Shadow, and they're on their way back to Atrios. Mirak says, "No, I'm going to stay behind to keep looking for Astra," and the Doctor and Romana let him. She's not here. Why are you letting him stay? I mean, he eventually ends up back on Atrios in a ward in the war. But
he gets injured. Which happens off screen. Drax tells us he's injured, but that's all we know about it. And this is something that doesn't really make sense because Mirak had seen Princess Astra turn into the sixth segment.
Basically went nuts.
Yeah.
He lost it. He was in such grief. He just went nuts.
And they just left him behind to run around presumably empty Zeos, unless he runs into Zeons.
In their defense, the time loop at this point was stretched to its breaking point, and destruction was about to happen. So they could have said, well, we can't really fix him right now. We don't have time, and he'll be a distraction. So let's just go do what we can.
Right. That's true. So at one point, the Shadow uses captured Romana to get the Doctor to hand over the key to time in exchange for her. Doesn't really work too well, although he does hand it over.
I like how Romana is totally matter of fact and businesslike. It's like, no, Doctor, it doesn't matter what happened to me. We've got the whole universe at stake.
Yeah,
because he's torturing her.
Right, torturing for information. Does he say he gets information from her, or all we're going to get?
At one point, yeah, he says that Romana's told me everything she knows, but it's not enough.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So she's smart enough to reveal information to help herself, but does not, because she knows she's not gonna. What can she say that it's gonna help the Shadow? I think that's about all I have of this. I mean, there's a lot of other just little bits of the plot that I thought were fun. Let's talk about the randomizer. So at the end, the Doctor tells Romana he's put a randomizer circuit on the console so that they're going to just careen about the universe at random time and space.
More randomly. So so that the Black Guardian can't track him down, which he eventually does, as we see in the Fifth Doctor's time.
But once he pulls the randomizer back out of the TARDIS, then he tracks him down.
Right. That's they do follow up on that. But I think it's interesting. It's a kind of a return to the way things were in the First Doctor's time. So I presume in season 17, which is coming up next, that's what we're going to see is a bunch of random jumps.
More or less.
Yeah, there's no real season arc.
Yeah,
controlling the directions they go in next season.
And we've only got 10 more stories before Legopolis, I think. So we got 5 and 6. Legopolis has is the 6th story in the final season. We've already talked about that. And then the next season had Shada, which we've already talked about when they did the animated reconstruction, which was an incomplete Fourth Doctor story. So fairly short seasons coming up.
And we've got among them the E-Space trilogy.
Yep.
Where the Doctor spends like 3 stories in an alternate universe.
And
that's
picks
where
up
Adric shows up.
Yeah.
And Nissa and so forth.
Right. Okay. So any other notes on the Armageddon factor, though, Father Cory?
No. There's just one great line I love. Again, the K9 Doctor interaction where the Doctor saying, well, one of us is being extremely stupid, and K9 just, affirmative. It's clear who K9 thinks is the one being stupid.
Yes. K9's got some sass. How about you, Jimmy? Any other notes?
No. I guess one note on the overall Key to Time series. I really liked what they were trying to do with this season-long arc. It's kind of a template for Modern Who, although Modern Who tends to keep the season arc in the background until late in the game. Here, the season arc is in the foreground.
Right.
I liked Romana I. I thought she was awesome. I really wish that Mary Tam had decided to stay with the show, because I would have loved to see more of Romana I, and I would have loved to see Romana II eventually. But I would love to have have more Mary Tam. I thought that they did a reasonable job of telling stories around the Key to Time material. But I ultimately think that, this is a MacGuffin quest, and so I thought the ending of the MacGuffin quest, where they finally got all segments, was not as strong as it could have been and should have been, because it leaves so much unresolved.
It was a bit anticlimactic, given that you've dedicated a season to the capturing all the pieces and what they had said about it. How powerful of it. Because when you build something up that big, it's got to have a big ending. And they didn't do it.
Well, and we don't really even see the full power of it. We just see kind of a 75% power where it does the time loop. We don't see the whole thing where everything's frozen.
Yeah, what they should have done, and they could have done this even absent the actor who played the White Guardian. But what they should have done is they could have had the Black Guardian fake out, and then the Doctor gets it to the real White Guardian, and the real White Guardian does the rebalancing and congratulates the Doctor on having given the universe another billion years of life or something. And that would be the kind of payoff you would expect from a season-long quest like this. And then the White Guardian disperses the segments back into hiding, including Princess Astra.
Right. That would have been at least more satisfying, I think. You're right.
Yep.
All right, so that brings to a close our discussion of the Armageddon Factor and this season of the Fourth Doctor. We want to now take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Doctor Who, including Daryl S., John W., Jeremy S., Joanne M., and Christine G. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Doctor Who and all the shows at StarQuest, and you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. This StarQuest show is also brought to you by Exodus 90 and the Exodus 90 app, a daily companion to help you grow closer to God and to become the man you want to be. This summer, join the Enthronement to the Sacred Heart, the Exodus 90 Summer Book Club, and St. Michael's Lent, beginning August 15th and leading up to the Feast of St. Michael the Archangel on September 29th. Go to exodus90.com/SQPN for a 14-day free trial to the Exodus 90 app and to learn more about St. Michael's Lent. That's exodus90.com/SQPN to join us for St. Michael's Lent starting August 15th. We'd also like to thank Zyman Yannick, who edited this episode. So that's it from us. What did you think of the Armageddon Factor? You can let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com or the Secrets of Doctor Who Facebook page, or send an email to drwho@sqpn.com, or visit the StarQuest Discord community at sqpn.com/discord. And you can watch the Secrets of Doctor Who on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/StarQuestMedia, where you can leave a comment, and you could certainly subscribe and give a like. We'll be back next time when we'll be discussing the Fifth Doctor story, The Awakening. Until then, Father Cory Stichas, thank you for joining me and sharing the Secrets of Doctor Who.
Thank you, Dom.
Jimmy Aiken, thank you as well.
Thanks, Dom.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Doctor Who on StarQuest. And remember, you don't beg for peace, princess. You win it.